Welcome to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast, where every week Kirsten and Jeannie dive into the essential topics to fuel your business growth. From copywriting to course creation, mindset to video marketing, they've got you covered. Tune in for expert guest interviews on all things marketing and business, and learn how to work on your business, not just in it. So, get ready to unlock your business potential and take it to the next level.
I'm Kristen with Six Figure Business Coaching, and that's Jeannie.
We have Deltrease Hart-Anderson. Her company is D Hart Accounting, and she's not your average accountant. She keeps the IRS out of your wallet and out of your bank accounts through tax savings. Today, she's going to talk to tax essentials every business owner should know, because you can't afford to put off learning how to better your tax and accounting systems. So let's talk about keeping the IRS out of your pocketbook, wallet, and bank accounts. Thank you so much for being here, Deltrease.
Thank you for having me, Jeannie. I am so excited.
You're talking to people probably like most business owners that are scared to death of the IRS. They hate all things about taxes and bookkeeping because it's generally not what they're good at and it's not what they enjoy. So what would be your first tip for everyone? What's the first thing you'd recommend that every business owner do?
So my first tip to any business owner, if you don't have a federal ID number, get a federal ID number for your business, okay? So think of this federal ID number as like the social security number for your business. And whenever you get that number, the first thing you want to do is secure that number, put that number in a safe place. That number is going to come to you on what's called a CP 575 notice. Keep that CP 575 notice. That notice is like a social security card for your business. So you always want to keep that number handy for bank purposes. That notice is also going to tell you what tax return you need to file. So you want to have that number always. That's tip number one. And anytime you're going to use a merchant service account like Square and Stripe, you're going to need that number because that's going to be the number you're identified with when they send those 1099Ks at the end of the year.
Perfect. All right.
My second tip is know your business structure versus your tax structure. Now, if I ask 100 small business owners, what is your business structure? They're going to tell me it's an LLC. And then I'm going to ask them, what is your tax structure? And they're going to tell me it's an LLC. Structure and the tax structure are totally different. That business structure, yes, you may be an LLC, and that all that business structure is doing, that LLC is providing you legal protection. That has absolutely positively nothing to do with your tax structure, what the IRS is looking for. The IRS could care less whether you're an LLC or not. You as a business owner should care if you're an LLC because now you have that legal protection around your business. But that tax structure is where the magic really happens. Know if you are a single member LLC taxed as a sole proprietor. Know if you are a partnership and you have an LLC, if you're taxed as a partnership. If you are an S corporation, if you're a C corporation, those are the tax structures and what you need to know when it comes to tax time, to tax planning, how you can save, how you can keep the IRS out of your pocketbooks, your wallets, and your bank accounts if you know your tax structure, because you'll know how to handle your business and how to save on your taxes.
And tax structure can sometimes change, am I right? So if you were an LLC partnership and maybe once you had a certain volume, you might want to file as an S Corp, is that right?
That is correct. You can change your tax structure almost any time. Sometimes you will have to have permission from the IRS to do so, or you have to file additional paperwork, but definitely you don't have to remain in the same tax structure. And that's where getting with a good accountant and looking at tax planning comes in, because that accountant can look at not just your business income, but all of your sources of income to determine what's going to be your best tax structure.
And I think that's something people don't really think about. And we're all busy trying to get clients in the door and get our marketing done and build our teams and make money. So it's that, I feel like the tax stuff and the bookkeeping and all that kind of gets put on the back burner. And again, since it's not something most business owners love and enjoy. So how would you recommend a business owner broach the subject with their accountant of their tax structure? So would you just encourage them to ask, do you feel like my tax structure is the right structure for me based on the revenue I'm creating? What would you recommend?
So that goes into two other of my tips, knowing your numbers. So first, you have to know your numbers. And when I talk about know your numbers, every business owner at some point in time needs to generate in their business a profit and loss statement as well as a balance sheet. Okay. There are some other financial statements, but those are the most important statements. Well, statement of cash flow is very important too. As a matter of fact, that's probably the most. But when it comes to analyzing what business structure that you want to be in or you need to be in, you first have to start with knowing your numbers. That profit and loss statement is going to let you know what your income is and what your expenses are. Are you making a profit or are you losing money? That balance sheet is going to share with you what your assets are in the business, what your liabilities, how much, who do you owe, how much do you owe those people, and what your business worth is. So that's what you have to start with, knowing what your profit is in your business, and then pairing it with other income that you may have. You may be a business owner and a real estate investor. You may be a business owner and still have a part-time job or a full-time job. So you have to look at the profits of your business in conjunction with all of your other sources of income. You may be married, so you have to look at your spouse's income as well. All of the income that you will report on your tax return, in addition to the profits or losses of your business, is going to determine what your best tax structure is. So that's tip number 3, know your numbers.
Okay.
And I'm grateful that Kirsten knows our numbers because I was like, oh boy, that's a lot.
The tip number 4 comes in as know the type of accountant that you have. When you have these conversations with your accountant, you have to make sure that you're talking to the right type of accountant. There are all sorts of accountants. Accountants come in different shapes and sizes. You have your bookkeepers. That bookkeeper is probably going to be the one that is going to help you form or create those financial statements. But that bookkeeper may not necessarily be the accountant that you get to analyze the information to determine what's your best tax structure. But that bookkeeper could be that person. You have your bookkeepers, that's an accountant. You have your tax preparers, that's also an accountant. If your tax preparer is used to doing individual tax returns, but all of a sudden you have this business, this is your baby, and they're not used to doing business tax things or business tax returns, analyzing your tax return or your financial statements to see what tax structure is best for you, then you might want to go a step further. So it could be a tax preparer, but just a tax preparer that focuses on business taxes. It could be a CFO type accountant, so a chief financial officer accountant that may prepare taxes and analyze taxes. Because the thing you want to understand is preparing a tax return is different from tax planning and tax analysis or tax strategies. So you want to have the conversation with an accountant that can provide you tax strategies or tax planning.
Yeah, because it would be terrible to realize that you paid $30,000 more in taxes than you had to because you didn't do any planning. And that's something you see all the time. Business owners who are paying a lot more taxes than they need to because simply they're not planning ahead. They don't have strategy. They don't understand to change their structure with the IRS. So do you want to share a story with us where you saved someone a lot of money?
So I have a story that broke my heart. So I am always in the business of strategic planning and saving money, but I'd like to just share a story where I could not help a client because those stories they're few and far between, but it happened. So I had a client that came to me last year and they wanted their taxes done. They wanted a strategy and they wanted their taxes prepared. They were in a C corporation. Now, in a C corporation, it's different how your losses are treated. She had gone into business with a family member and they had a loss in the business. Well, they could not take any of those losses. They had to eat the losses. So typically, when you're first starting out in business, if you have losses and you have a W-2 job, those losses can offset the income of your W-2 job. These losses, because she was in the wrong business structure, these losses could not offset the income that she had. So she just had some losses sitting there that she couldn't do anything with. That's horrible. That's why you want to talk to an accountant, a tax accountant, not just any tax accountant, an experienced accountant that understands tax strategy and tax planning. And don't get caught up in the alphabet soup, if you will. Some people say, oh, I'll just go to my CPA. Well, I have plenty of CPAs that refer work to me all the time. I am an IRS enrolled agent, so I represent taxpayers when they're in tax trouble, businesses as well as individuals. But a CPA will send me two types of clients. One, if there's tax strategy that's needed because they don't do that type of work, or they'll send me their clients when they need representation for the IRS or a state agency. So not just any old CPA will do. I'm an IRS enrolled agent. So you really have to interview the accountant and ask them, hey, accountant, what is it that you do? Do you do bookkeeping only? Do you do bookkeeping and tax prep for individuals? Do you do tax prep for businesses? Do you provide tax planning strategies? So it's a whole conversation that you have to know who you're getting.
Yeah, that's important. I think, again, it goes back to being afraid to ask, right? Because you're kind of going to this person, asking the doctor questions, right? You're kind of going to this person who is the professional, and you assume that all of them have the experience and the knowledge to do what you need them to do because you really don't always know what you need them to do. So I guess that question about, like, do you specialize in business taxes and do you do business strategy? Will you help me set up the best tax structure? And I would say another question that I might recommend is, will you take time to educate me? I don't want to be one of these business owners who sticks my head in the sand. And I don't ever want to be an accountant, so I don't need a high level education. But will you take the time to say, these are the things you need to understand, and just make sure that you're encouraging me to learn the basic things that I need to know to be a better client of yours and to be a better steward of my money?
Absolutely. If I get at least 3 or 4 times a week, someone coming to me saying, hey, could you just look at my taxes? Tell me why I owe so much. I can't get a straight answer. Why do I owe so much? My accountant won't tell me. Well, sometimes the accountant doesn't know. And it's okay not to know. Everyone has their lane. I don't do bookkeeping. If someone comes to me right now and say, I want my books done, I have so many colleagues that I can refer them out to. I know how to read the financial statements once they get back to me, but I don't do bookkeeping. So I stay in my lane.
So with part of strategy, do you ever question what someone's spending? So for example, if you always hear this rule of thumb, you should spend 10% of your budget on marketing. Well, you should spend 10% of your budget on marketing if you're getting great returns on that 10%. So it's not just about spending it, it's about looking at the rate of return on it. So do you advise people, maybe they're out of whack on a category?
That's where the CFO type services come in. That has nothing to do with tax planning per se. It is expense management. We do analyze those financial statements to see what is being spent, the percentages, and you're absolutely right when you talk about, spend 10%. Why are you spending it? Let's see the results. As a result, of this expense, how much more income did it add? How much did it add to your bottom line? What
Right.
did it add to your profit margin? So those things are very important. And we do have those conversations with our CFO clients. And that's another thing. I spent over 10 years in corporate America in finance and accounting companies, in Fortune 500 companies. So I understand how to analyze the financial statement. I know how to do bookkeeping. I just don't want to do it. So I can analyze the financial statements. I can also analyze the tax return. You may have to get multiple people, and most of the times your tax professional, they may have a team that they put together if they don't do all of those things. What can you do for me? And of the things that you can't, can you point me in the right direction? And for your audience, if there's a need of anything that your accountant doesn't do, you can definitely reach out to me and I can point you in the right direction. I literally have colleagues across the country that I talk to on a regular basis.
So at what point would a business owner hire you as a CFO? Explain to people what that is, what it means to be a fractional CFO. And then my next part of that question would be, at what level of income or what size businesses do you normally see raising their hand and saying, I want to have a conversation about hiring a CFO right for me?
Great question. So the CFO, just as we were talking about before, looking at the numbers all the time, keeping a pulse on those numbers, how much you're spending, how much you are bringing in, and not just how much, but ways that we can cut costs, ways that we can increase income, answering those questions that you may have, whether it's tax related or accounting related questions on a regular basis, just anything money related or near money related, then that CFO is going to be the it person for you. That is your accountant on call, as I call it. It's going to help you establish a budget. Again, all the ways that you can grow your revenue, as well as lower your expenses, as well as look at those tax strategies. Other businesses can get away with having them every 3 weeks, once a month. And sometimes even with those businesses, especially if they're on a growth path, they want those conversations at least twice a week. And just have a regular meeting. You still want to be able to have access to your CFO on call, if you will.
Thank you so much for all this information. I think so many people are really going to find this helpful. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you to talk to you about maybe they're in trouble with the IRS or they know someone who is, or perhaps because getting in trouble with the IRS, I think, is very typical for business owners early on because they just don't really understand how to put money away for taxes. So, or if they're at a point where they really want to have a conversation about a fractional CFO, or if they maybe want you to give them a referral to someone else, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Absolutely. So the best way to reach me is www.callthetaxpro.com. That's CALLTHETAXPRO. So callthetaxpro.com. They can schedule a time to just chat with me. And I meet business owners where they are. You talk about that education piece. I am literally probably a month away from putting together just an education program where business owners that may not be at that level yet where they need or can afford a fractional CFO, they can still have access through a group membership program. But whether someone has tax issues, whether someone wants to avoid having tax issues, they can still I can still meet with them. I can have a consultation with them.
We'll definitely put a link to that. We really appreciate that. Wow.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it, and I've learned a lot. So it's exciting.
You are a wealth of information. Yes, we appreciate it so much. Yeah, and like Kirsten said, we'd love to have you back.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We'll
Thank
see you soon. Okay.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode and you are ready to leverage video marketing on all online platforms, or maybe even start your own video podcast, then you need to check out the Done For You and Done With You program at themarketingvaadvantage.com and take your business to the next level.